since we all are still lingering in the festive mood, wishing you all a very happy Dassehra Vijayadashami, and taking the location, just a word or two before we get into the last section of the text, the Upanishad. Now, whenever we have these festivities, which is either be Dassehra or Diwali, or any of these various elements of our rich tradition, our religion, the Hindu religion, which has introduced these various gods and goddesses and the various rituals and the various aspects of Hinduism. Either you take it literally or you read it symbolically. Either way, there is a benefit. The bottom line of that is, how does this activity, how does this remembrance impact and transform and change my life? If you take these instances literally, happen in the history, literally, if you take it, they could have happened sometime in history. But how does it influence my life today? How can it change my course of action today? How can I become a better person today? It would have it has a significance, but not profound significance. But if you really want to get transformed, you want to really impact your life, you want to bring about a change, you have to look at it from a very symbolic perspective. Now, you may not be able to take it everything symbolically, so there is a mixture of tradition and symbolism. Now, when you talk of tradition, you go through certain practices, certain ritualistic practices, you do certain, as I said, rituals, which is unique to every festivity. But more important than that, what is the takeaway? What's the symbolism behind it? So it's important to understand there's something called as the essentials and the non-essentials. In every religion, in every occasion, there's an essential, non-essential. So as a practitioner, as a spiritual sadhak, we have to minimize the non-essentials and increase the essential element so that the impact on you and the takeaway is far greater. Now, taking literally into the occasion of Dassehra, what does the whole 10-day festival symbolize? Briefly, you all have heard it in some context or the other. So the first 3 days is you worship Goddess Durga. Now, what does worshipping Goddess Durga mean? Durga Ma has been symbolized as a mother of destruction, destroying negativity. So unless and until you destroy your tamoguna and rajoguna, unless you get rid of the negative propensities, the negative desires, the negative qualities in you, you have not embarked on the spiritual journey. So the first step you should take is you are not available for this negativity. So the dussang, all that company which would bring about your spiritual downfall, you would have to say no to it. Wherever you go, what is the association of thought? Whatever you do, what's the association of that? So if anything that you associate gives you a conduciveness to your tamas and rajas, you must say no to it. That's how you start arresting your negativity. And the first 3 days is spent symbolically. Again, it's not something you conquer in 3 days, but first 3 days symbolizing the negativities. Or you may say negativity at all 3 levels of your personality. And once you have conquered the negative, then you go the next step, you worship goddess Lakshmi, which is symbolizing the establishment of the positive qualities. Only when the negative subside, the positive starts coming to the surface, to the forefront. And any individual at any point of time, in any individual at any point of time, the negative qualities far outnumber the positive. Symbolized by the 100 Kauravas and the Pancha Pandavas, 5 vis-a-vis 100. Also, the qualities of the positivity depend on quality, vis-a-vis the negativities depend on quantity. So you don't have to worry, oh, I only have very few good qualities in me. Don't worry, my dear. The good qualities are good enough to conquer and knock off all the voluminous negative tendencies and propensities we have. So it is quality vis-a-vis quantity. Now you want to do some harm, you want to destroy something. 1 or 2 fellows not sufficient. You have to carry gundas. You watch any movies, how these gangs go. There'll be a caravan of cars. There'll be 10 cars that will go one behind the other, loaded with people, or they'll come with a truck full of lorry with all these weapons of destruction, and there'll be one hero. One fellow vis-a-vis 100 fellows. And that is even on screen and off screen also is a reality. So to do any harm, you need quantity, but you want to do good, you don't need quantity. I remember hearing Swamiji, he used to say, I want to spread this knowledge to the world. I just need a handful of you all who are committed with me, who will give your life to this cause. And if I were to give this torch to you, you fellows will go and in the course of your life, you'll impact the world. I don't need numbers. And the course of his 40, 50, 60 years of his life of propagating, he must have met hundreds and thousands of people. But he said, I don't need all those people. I just need a handful of you. So it is the good that prevails over the bad. The bad needs the numbers, the quantity, the good needs the quality. But you need to address the negativity, curb them, so that the positivity which starts sprouting and blossoming. And once you have substantially establishing the positive qualities, that is when you instill the Brahma Vidya. Till then, the Brahma Vidya is not given. The knowledge of Brahman is not given to you. So the second set of 3 days, that is 4, 5, and 6, you worship the goddess of Lakshmi, symbolizing establishment of positive qualities. The last 3 days is you imbibe the knowledge of the higher, the Vedic truths, the Upanishadic declarations. So you need a conducive environment, the soil. The soil is provided by the establishment of the virtuous qualities. What are the virtuous qualities? Forgiveness, sacrifice, Dhamma, Tapa. We studied the last week. The 8th mantra of the Kenopanishad, where he said, Tapo Dhamma Karmeti Pratishtha. This is the foundation. So to cultivate, to establish yourself in these virtuous qualities. Once these qualities are established, they create the soil where the Atma Vidya, the Brahma Vidya can be instilled. And once that flourishes, once you get established in this wisdom, once you get grounded in wisdom, you reach a point where you can destroy, annihilate, liquidate your ego, which is celebrated the 10th day, that the effigy of Ravana, you destroy the demon within, culminating in the ultimate experience of self-realization. So when you celebrate Dassehra, leading up to the occasion of celebration, you go through this passage where you are reminded of the sadhana. Now, it's not that only 10 days you do this. The rest of your life, your spiritual life, you're trying to destroy the rajas and tamas. You're going to establishing the sattva, and then only a sattvic person will receive the knowledge of the self. If you remember, this is the connection. First, destruction of rajas and tamas, establishment in sattva. Now, only to the extent you're established in sattva, you will seek this sattvic knowledge. That to that extent only you're receptive to Goddess Saraswati. If the sattva is only 20%, you are content with 20% knowledge. You don't want anything more than that. Oh, I have had enough. Thank you very much. I don't want anything more. But if we have 80% sattva, the thirst is so much that you want that Brahma Vidya. You're not content with 20%. You have 80% urge. Saraswati, you need far more. You are not interested in anything else. You're only interested in this wisdom. You only want this higher truth. You only want moksha. You are very driven to the goal of the Shastras. That is what the Saraswati, the knowledge says. And that is when you attain enlightenment. It's also in stages, not necessarily only at realization. You destroy the ego. Ultimately, the ego gets destroyed completely at realization. But as and when you keep practicing this, to the extent you practice destruction of rajas and tamas, establishments of sattva, imbibing sattvic knowledge, to that extent the ego is nullified. To that extent the ego is liquidated. To that extent you are spiritually evolved. So this essential spiritual practice is a subjective process. This you must understand. This ritual of worshipping goddess, the three goddesses, which is, what are three goddesses? Goddess Durga, Goddess Lakshmi, and Goddess Saraswati. This essential spiritual practice is a subjective experience, a subjective phenomenon. Now, all that the Shastras are teaching us is an objective representation of a subjective happening. Hariji just captured this beautiful phrase. It's an objective representation of a subjective happening. So objective is an external exhibition, is a display, is a showcasing. Now, how to convey this knowledge which can appeal to universal people? It's an objective. So they brought in a ritual, they brought in an idol, they brought in a festivity, they brought a story, they brought parables. So all this is objective. So everything in religion is an objective representation of a subjective happening or a subjective phenomenon. Now, this connection, if you don't make, the ritual becomes a I hope you all have got the question. If you, Amitama, what's the question, Amitama? Can't hear you, Ma, please.
Hari Om Guruji, can you hear me?
Yes, Ma.
Yeah. So if we don't make the connection between the external representation and the subjective experience, then the ritual becomes completely aimless, or it doesn't serve its value.
In the terms we have used, very true, very rightly said, beautifully said. What happens to the ritual? And the term we have just used a little earlier, not that you're wrong, you actually answered it, but just to for my what do you call, comfort. It'll make me feel good if you say something which I said. What to do? A lot of ego is there my inside. Indirectly, I'm satisfying my own ego.
Sorry, sir. I think I missed that word.
No, you don't have to be sorry. In fact, you're beautifully said. The word
Non-essential.
or the non-essential. There you go. Correct, Shantima. You're right. Very good. So the religion or the religious practices that you practice become non-essential. I mean, they don't serve the purpose with which you are. So you practice it with great passion, with great vigor, with great devotion. They are the outer shells. You don't want to be holding on to the outer shell and miss the kernel. The shell does convey and restore the essential shell, the essential kernel rather. The kernel is the essential symbolic representation. So when you go, and also I made a point, try to make sure how minimal is the non-essentials of religion. And that is where your sadhana, your growth gets an impetus. You're starting a business and your business needs growth. What does it need? It needs an impetus. You need to give in funds. You need to give in resources. It needs a capital, isn't it? Now, you want your spiritual sadhana to grow, you must cut down on the non-essentials. Perform it to the minimal as possible. So that the essential gets a precedence importance. And then by the grace of all gurus and this great tradition, may we all evolve and reach that goal of realization, which is the actual celebration of Dassehra, the destruction of ego, the big fat ego we have got. Not easy to conquer, but you have got enough tools to do so. You'll have to diligently, faithfully use it with dexterity. Again, I'm borrowing the words of Adi Shankaracharya here. Kurvavadhanam, mahadhavadhanam. You've got to perform, use these practices with great care so that the 9 days culminating in 10th day has such deep allegorical significance. It has a deep message, which the festive has come and gone, but the intent and the message and the sadhana holds on throughout your year until the next year. By appointment, it comes and reminds you and reassures you, this is the journey, man, carry on. So the spirit will not die because the festivity has passed. The festivity has reinvigorated the existing vigor. So your intensity becomes more intensified. Otherwise, it is just another ritual you perform because occasion demands. So this, in short, is a brief of the significance of Dassehra. All right.